The future is a hefty responsibility and not one that we take lightly. But then taking things lightly has never been what Hefty is about. That's why we've created the Hefty Renew program that turns hard to recycle plastics into valuable resources like park benches and building materials. To participate, simply fill up an orange Hefty Renew bag with accepted items, tie it up, and drop it in with your regular recycling. That's it. It's that easy. It's time to rethink recycling with Renew. Particular valued resources may vary by geography. More info available at heftyrenew.com.
You're a podcast listener, and this is a podcast ad. Reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Lips and Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a reproduced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience with Lips and Ads. Go to lipsandads.com now. That's LIBSYN ads.com.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Law of Attraction Tribe podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Keith, and today we are going to talk about money manifesting, money mindset, all things money. So this is coming again from the Inner Tribe Facebook group questions that I've been getting from you guys, and I'm going to answer some of them today and talk about how we address money, how we think about money, how we talk about money, and also maybe some money boundaries. I think that might come into play. All right, so let's start out with an easy one, okay? So this question is, do you feel like it's acceptable to say, I don't want to spend money on that? That's not disrespecting money, correct? Like in terms of saying that's too expensive. Correct. So here's the most common misconception around manifesting money is people will think, well, I can't say like I can't afford it, I don't want it, because then I'm like blocking it. And so they just think like, well, if I just, spend, the money will manifest. And it's really not about that, okay? Like having a good money mindset and manifesting money, you need to think of it from the perspective of the version of you that already has more than enough money, right? More than she needs. How would you think about money? How would you talk about money? How would you react around money? Okay. And the first thing is respecting money, right? If you're wealthy, you have respect for money. You don't look at it as the bad guy, right? You don't look at it as something that's evil or wrong. You actually love money and you have a great relationship with money. You have a lot of respect for it. And, people might think like, oh, well, if you have a lot of money, then you're just careless and you just throw money around. And while that may be true, maybe based on someone you've met in your life before, it's not like the golden rule. It's the opposite. Most people, when they have a strong money mindset, they have respect for money and they don't just throw it around. They don't just buy something for the sake of buying something. They give it a lot of thought. And it's really interesting because if you listen to like financial planners, for example, like the guy that I saw at the bank, one day we were chatting and he was telling me how, obviously he could see how much everyone has, like what their net worth is, how much money they have in the bank, like all that kind of stuff. And he's like, yeah, the people that come with like the flashy cars and, the designer outfits, they're usually broke as a joke. Like they're usually in so much debt. And he's like, but you want to know what's weird? The people that do have millions, they come in like a Toyota or like a Honda. Like they're not driving these luxury brand vehicles. They don't really show it. And they don't spend their money on, things that don't really matter. They give it a lot of thought. And I agree with that. I feel like when you have a good relationship with money and you build wealth, you respect it and you build it by not spending frivolously, but by investing in things that are going to give you a long-term return. So, to answer your question, like absolutely, it's acceptable to say, I don't want to spend my money on that. I worked for this money. This money is mine. And you know what? That thing is not valuable enough to me for me to turn over my money. I don't want it. I don't want to spend my money on that. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's showing a great deal of respect for money and responsibility for your financial future, right? And so I think it's really important to ask yourself that. Like, when you're going to go and buy something, are you buying this from a place of joy, from a good vibration? Like, I know in my heart of hearts, this is a good expense, and I'm buying it because it's going to give me XYZ, versus just buying on impulse because it's going to make you feel good in that split second when you purchase it, but then a week later, you're going to forget all about it and that feeling is going to be gone. That's the difference. It's like, is it going to give you something like a long-term investment? Is it going to give you something that you feel is worth it? Or are you just doing it to get that, like, dopamine hit the moment you buy it? Like, that's the difference between buying something on impulse versus buying something because you really do want to spend your money on it. And it's totally acceptable to do whatever the hell you want with money. Like, you don't have to ask anyone, is it acceptable if I do this or do that? Like, do what you want with money. Like, that's part of having a strong money mindset, is telling yourself that I am capable to make the right decisions about my finances. And if I really want to invest in something, I'm going to invest in it. And if it's not that important to me, then no, I'll hang on to my money. Thank you. Like, that kind of a mindset. I had a coaching client ask once, she's like, I have young kids. I don't want to screw up their money mindset. So what do I do when we're at the grocery store and they want to buy something that's, expensive? Like, should I say we can't afford that? Should I buy it anyways? Like, what should we do? And so for me personally, I really try not to say things like, we can't afford it, or it's too expensive, because I do feel like those types of things can really shape your subconscious beliefs around money in a negative way, in like a very scarcity way. So instead, I think it's really smart as a parent to empower your kids with money and say, look, our budget today is, let's say, $100. Let's just throw that out there, okay? Our budget's $100. So as far as, that thing you want, we have maybe $5 we can contribute to that. So why don't you try to find something in the store that's $5? Or, you know what? This is our budget. This is what we came here to get. We don't really need that, but maybe next time. But like, let them know, like, give them some education around it. I think that's empowering, like teaching kids, like, hey, we have a budget, and like, okay, if you want to get this, well, then we can't get that. And like, we need this for dinner. You know what I mean? Like, just educating them so that they can start to respect money and have that level of relationship with it, where we're not just going to throw it around on something stupid. We're going to have intention behind how we use it. So that's just my 2 cents on it. And hopefully that helps with that question. Another question was, I would love to hear you talk about your money numbers. I listen to other podcasters that share their numbers, but I haven't heard you go into much detail. Also, how do you deal with taxes? Out of, say, $1,000, what do you set aside? Okay, so this is where I'm going to talk about money boundaries, okay? I see other people online, other podcasters, whatever, that go into like insane amount of detail on their income, their expenses, like all of that. Personally, I feel like that's stupid. Okay, like, you do what you want, but that is not something that I will probably ever do. And there's a reason why. And I kind of feel like everyone should be that way to some extent, like it's your money, it's something that is private to you, and you don't have to share that with anyone. Okay? And just like the guy at the bank was saying, the people that are flashy that share it, a lot of that is like total BS. Okay? The people that are smart and think about the long term are a little more guarded and a little more secretive. And you know what? Like I am too. And I'm going to give you the reasons why and why I would not recommend that you ever share your personal financial details online to a large audience. Share it with your spouse, the person you're sharing your life with and your bank account with, but you really don't owe that to anyone else. So number one, I would say is just a boundary, just like you don't have to share who you vote for. You don't have to share like your personal health information. You can choose to, but you don't have to. You don't owe that to anyone. Same with your finances. So that's just number one, just the principle of it. Like that is a boundary that I think that all business people should set. Because you can find yourself in sticky situations. Okay. So the very first thing that comes to mind when I see these people sharing their details of like how much their income was or whatever is I feel like they're just asking to be audited. Okay. And here's the reality of it. The IRS, they're using AI, and part of that AI is literally like going through the whole internet, including social media, to see if there's any income that you didn't report. And so I feel like when you're putting things out there like that, like you're just asking for the IRS, AI to audit you, to flag you. And you could be doing absolutely nothing wrong, right? You could have the best accountant in the world. But let me tell you something, nobody wants to go through it. It's time consuming. Sometimes it could be expensive if you have to hire someone to pull up all the documentation. And why put yourself in that situation, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is I've seen it backfire on people. I have really seen it backfire on people. So I'm not going to name names or anything like that. But for example, I saw one woman and she posted her income. And so then people were like, well, okay, if you made that much, well, how much did you spend? Like, let's say you made $100,000. Did you spend $99,000 on ads? You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. So then she posts her expenses. And right away, I could tell she regretted it because there were a gazillion comments that all wanted to know how the hell she's not paying more in taxes. And so then she had to do another post kind of basically saying yeah, you're right. I got to talk to my tax guy and fix that. And it was one of those things where, again, I'm like, okay, now you have a red flag and are probably going to get audited. And I don't think it really served any purpose other than people being like, well, what the hell? I pay more than that in taxes kind of thing. So, it can be a slippery slope because people are going to want to know all the details then. And again, I don't really know that is something that you want to share too much on a public platform, especially. What else? There was another girl and she was the first person I saw do this, where she would every month she would give a breakdown of how much she made, how much she spent, all these kinds of things. And it really backfired. She started talking about that, about how she's kind of embarrassed that she went over that because a lot of people started looking at her differently. And that is something I will absolutely say holds me back from sharing my finances, because if you share it online, you're not just sharing it online to strangers, right? You've got friends, you've got relatives, you have people that personally know you that see that. And unfortunately, if you make a certain dollar amount, there's going to be a lot of people that will come out of the woodworks and want a piece of it, or think that they're entitled to it, or just assume oh, well, she makes enough money, she could pay for this, or, oh, she makes enough money, she'll give me a loan. And next thing you know, you find yourself in some really difficult situations because you have to tell people no, and it can ruin relationships. It could change people's perception of you. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there, and people that personally, that may not have ever worked on their limiting beliefs around money. So if they still have all the beliefs that, oh, if she's rich, she must be a bitch, or she must be greedy, or she must be doing something wrong, they could go from looking at you like you're the greatest person in the world to looking at you like, they're jealous of you or they hate you because you have money or they think you're a bad person now. And I have seen it happen. I've seen it happen with people. So again, everyone's free to do whatever they want with it, but you're also free to keep that just between you and the person that, you're sharing your life with and your finances with. And if you're going to put it out there publicly, really think about it ahead of time and think about how much you want to share, like how many details you want to share. Think about how you're going to handle questions that come up that way. And I don't recommend it. And I don't think I'm ever going to do that. I might give like vague numbers, but I don't think I'm ever going to give those details away. So sorry about that. The next part of the question was like, how do you deal with taxes? Like out of $1,000, what do you set aside? So typically people will set 15% aside, 15 to 20%. And that way, when you go and you file your taxes, when you include all of your expenses and all the things that you can write off, you typically end up paying like 15%. So a lot of people will set aside 15%. I typically will set aside 20% just to be extra safe. Like I'd rather have too much saved than not enough and then I'm stressed out or whatever. So I think a good rule of thumb is anywhere from 15 to 20%. But if you're not good with numbers and all of that, I would say get an accountant once you start making money. Like get someone that's going to handle all that for you. And what they'll do is they'll set up where you pay your taxes quarterly. So instead of like at the end of the year, you've got this like big tax bill, you estimate how much you're going to make. And then each quarter you send in money and then you can like even it all out, with the year-end taxes. But that's typically what you do if you have a business. And I think that if you don't do that, you might even like get a penalty or something by the IRS. I'm not sure, but I would just recommend either way, like get an accountant and they'll know what to do. They'll be able to give you the vouchers to pay your taxes ahead of time. And I would just estimate 15 to 20% of your revenue is what you're going to pay in taxes. And an app that I use to keep track of my expenses is called Keeper. It's phenomenal. It is phenomenal. It tracks everything. It puts things in categories for you, and just keeps everything straight. So at the end of the year, down to the penny what your expenses were. So it's called Keeper. I love it. I would recommend that if you need an app like that. Okay, how long did you have your app live before you made your first 10K? That I don't know exactly because this was a few years ago, but I will say this. You have to keep in mind, I started my app with an audience. Like I had a large audience and I had my podcast. So I did make a lot of money very quickly. So you got to just keep that in mind in trying to compare like someone else's business to yours. And that's why in Digital CEO, I teach you the ad strategy for running ads, because if you're not at that point yet, that's fine that you don't have a big audience or a podcast or whatever, but you can get there through ads. And so that's why I show you how to do like ads that are not expensive, that help you kind of like make up that gap if you're starting without a big audience. So yeah, that's what I would say. And then the other thing that you got to keep in mind is every pricing is different, right? Like if you're charging $5.99 for an app, or if you're charging $159, for like a lifetime membership, you have to take that into consideration when you're thinking like, how much money do I want to make each month and how can I anticipate this? You really want to break down the numbers and think, what am I charging? And for that price that I'm charging, how many people have to download the app and pay for that in order for me to hit my goal? And then you can adjust from there. Let's see. what was the other thing? Oh, okay. So here's another one. So this is really around limiting beliefs, but like I feel like a lot of self-worth and imposter syndrome comes up with this question. And that is, how do you shake the feeling that you're taking from people when they buy your product? So this goes back to all those deep-rooted money beliefs, right? You thinking that you must be doing something wrong if people are paying you, you know? It also could be imposter syndrome, thinking like, oh my gosh, I don't think I'm an expert and this person just paid me, and like that's wrong, you know? And trust me when I say everyone goes through that. Everyone that starts a business goes through that in the beginning because it's such a foreign feeling, right? We go from an environment where we collect a paycheck based on the number of hours worked to now we're generating income based on a product that we're putting out and the value that we're giving. And so it's a very different feeling. And so that's why it feels very scary and very uncomfortable, and like self-doubt and fear and everything creeps in, and that's normal. Like everyone goes through it, and the more you do it, the less you're going to feel that. But I would say going back and working through those limiting beliefs around making money is bad, it's greedy, it's, you know, who am I to make this? Like all of those things you'll want to address. You can address those with tapping, with subliminals, with journaling. Like there's so many different ways to go about it, but you want to continually work on those limiting beliefs and just like affirm that you are giving great value. And a thing that I talk about in Freedom Tribe is that whenever you put something out, especially in the beginning, like when you're first getting started, think about it as I am going to give 10 times the value than the price that I'm charging for this product. Okay, so like let's say you have a $20 product or whatever. Just think, I want to make sure that when someone goes through this product, right? Maybe it's like a course or an ebook or whatever. I want to make sure that when they spend that $20, they're going to be thinking, wow, this should have been $200. This should have been $400. This is insane how much value I got from this. So keep that in mind when you're setting your price, especially in the beginning. And that's why I think we kind of do things backwards. I see a lot of people that will start their business with one-on-one coaching, which is like the most expensive high ticket thing you can offer, right? When really, if you start with an app or you start with a low ticket offer, like I teach in Freedom Tribe, then it helps to really overcome those limiting beliefs because you can wrap your mind around it because it's a smaller price and you give a ton of value with it. You pack it with all kinds of value and benefits that you damn well know they're getting way more than what they paid for. And that's the mentality you want to start with. And not only is that going to help you with your money beliefs, but it's also really going to help your business because people are going to be like, wow, like this was phenomenal. Imagine what her $200 course is like, or imagine what her coaching is like. It helps to build that trust factor and that, you know, likability factor and all that kind of thing. So just use that as kind of your basis that you're always going to give 10 times more in value than what you charge, and you'll be golden. You won't have to worry about that. So man, this episode has flown by, but I think I got to all the questions right now around money. If you want to leave more questions, just go to the Inner Tribe Facebook group and post it in there, and I will try to answer them and make podcast episodes based on what you guys want to hear. And yeah, if you are struggling with money, go grab my 11 course bundle for $11. Talk about immense value. You get 11 money manifestation courses for $11. Like, it is a no-brainer. I will link that in the show notes. You can also get it on my website at thelawofattractiontribe.com. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you back here next time.
You know that thing you've always been too scared to go for? It seems like you'll never have the guts. Then, a cancer diagnosis. And doing that thing becomes way less scary. I would know. I've always wanted a black belt. And today, the only thing standing in my way is a few wooden boards. It's been a lot of hard work and 5 years since I beat cancer at Ohio Health. Bring it on. You keep making plans.
Visit ohiohealth.com/keepmakingplans to learn more.